Hello, welcome to another episode of What Are You Selling with me, David Green. And today I'm delighted to be joined by author of Dawn of Assassins, Jon Cronshaw, from just across the water from me. So it's usually I'm talking to people from America or Canada. So it's great to talk to someone from not too far away from where I grew up.
Yeah, you grew up in Manchester, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, I'm in Lancashire, which is basically the next county. So yeah, I live in Morecambe, which is just on the seaside. So it's a nice rundown seaside town. You know, we get battered by the winds, so it's very, very inspiring for fantasy and things like that.
Yeah. I've been to Morecambe a few. Obviously, being where I grew up, we went to Morecambe quite a lot because if you want to go to the seaside, it was there or Blackpool or North Wales. So it was like we'll go to one of those three places.
Yeah, that's the choice, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And the train. I don't know why, but whenever I think about Morecambe, I think about the train station because it's right next to the water on the side of the beach, isn't it? It's like, and it's really long as well. I just have in my mind like I was just walking past like this never-ending train station for ages. So that's in Morecambe.
Yeah, that's moved now. So that's now a pub. So you could go there. Yeah, it's called the Platform, the pub. So, yeah, but now so the train station is a bit back now from the beach, so you actually get a better view.
A better view of the beach. Well, that makes sense. Yeah. That makes sense. So how are you doing? How is life treating you at the moment?
Yeah, good. I've just got over the Rona, so that had to come, didn't it? I mean, it's taken however long now. We're in 2022, so it's taken me 2 years. I managed to avoid it, but got hit with it this past weekend. So just getting over that. But apart from that, just getting back into writing and trying to get back on course with this book 2 in this new series, which is I've been putting it off. So I know I need to do it. So what I've decided to do is write a novella instead. So I'm just procrastinating on this new book. So
yeah. That's the successful writers way of working. It's like you get people saying, I need this next book, and they're like, well, you know what, I'm going to do something else for a little while. They've all done it. Robert Jordan's done it, Patrick Rothfuss has done it, George R. Martin goes and creates TV shows and other things like that, so he doesn't have to work on his next book.
Yeah, I really want to read Winds of Winter. Can you just hurry up and get that sorted, please? Yeah, it needs to come out. It needs to be done.
How do you feel? It wasn't something I was planning on asking you, but while it's come up, how do you feel about that kind of stuff now that you are a writer? And that's to say, a very successful writer. I mean, you're a full-time writer. People check out your books on Amazon and stuff. You see, like they're all ranked really highly. They're all successful. Now you're like a writer yourself, and you see things like other authors taking like 10 years in between books and what have you. Like, does part of you understand it, and does part of you think, well, I wouldn't do that?
Personally, I'd like to think I wouldn't do it. I think that by starting a series, you're making a promise to the reader. And as a fan of, let me see, people like Scott Lynch, Patrick Rothfuss, George R. R. Martin, the list goes on. It's like, and now I'm looking at Brandon Sanderson, his Stormlight Archive, thinking, okay, there was 4 years between those two books. He says it's going to be 10 in the series. Am I going to be in my mid-70s by the time this series is done? Or, it's like, I really want, life gets in the way though. This is the thing, it's like, I'll see it as a fan. And at the end of the day, it's like, we as artists, as creators, can only put out what we can put out. And sometimes our ambitions, what we want to do, is bigger than we can actually produce. Or I can't imagine, like George R. R. Martin, I feel bad for the guy because I think of what I was doing in the mid-90s if I was still doing stuff like that now. Now, obviously, I was still at secondary school, and I was writing stupid parody stories with my mate that were inspired by the Magic Roundabout. If I still had to do that, I don't know. I'd just be like, no, I don't want to revisit that world. I'm done with that world. I'm bored with that world. So I can see it. I can see it for sure. And I think there's also a thing of, when you've got a story in your head and then it's out of your head and it's in the world, which is what I think Martin's done with the TV series. Like, I can't imagine then going, oh, but I still need to tell this story that I've already told and is out to the world. I could just see it being hard, and as I say, life getting in the way, mental health, other factors, I I think if you spend too long in any series, it's just you lose something, you lose the spirit of it, or it just doesn't move you the same. And there's so many exciting things to do and potential stories that just appear. Like today, I had a stupid thought about I remembered a stupid fact popped in my head that dogs can't see rainbows. And so that led me on to thinking about, okay, what elements of the universe can't we see? And it basically just, I ended up brainstorming in my head just this idea for an urban fantasy. And it's like, I don't want to write urban fantasy, but the ideas are always coming and I'm getting excited about doing a space opera, doing this and that. And I just get these ideas shooting at me. And it's like, no. So I could see these authors getting annoyed and frustrated when people are like, you owe us this story. It's like, well, no, we don't. We gave you something. So I see both sides, I really do. And to answer you, I don't know. Long way of saying I've no idea.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, where I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't really know either. But I agree with both those points. But I was the same. I didn't want to write an urban fantasy, but I did, and like I'm in a series of them now. And that was the same thing as well. It was that same kind of idea. It's like, what can't people see? What else is there? What is out there that we can't see? It's always quite an interesting kind of thing. So about your writing, you said to us then before you started off writing, doing parodies as the Magic Roundabout, which is a great thing to parody. So how long have you been, when was it when you sat down and was like, okay, I'm going to try and make a career out of this? Or did you even think that?
Okay, out of writing, yes, not out of fiction writing. I don't know if you've ever read Stephen Pressfield's War of Art, but he talks about this idea of a shadow career, which is basically where you do the stuff that is a bit like what you really want to do. So I did journalism. I was a reporter, I was a features writer, I ran a magazine, I did radio, I did everything that wasn't really what I wanted to do, which was to write fiction. And then I was kind of forced to leave a job as working in PR. I'm registered blind, and the person I worked for wouldn't let my guide dog go for a wee. So I walked out. Like that's like a line for me, that is,
yeah, definitely.
Right. So I walked out of that job, and then I started writing my first book. And then I wrote another book. Then I wrote another book. None of these will ever see the light of day. They were all rubbish. And then what I did is I went to, this was in 2015. Yeah, 2015. I went to a retreat thing called, it's an Arvon course, I think it's called. And you basically spend a week in Ted Hughes's house in, where is it? In Coldale near Hebden Bridge. And it was, I don't know if you know Jeff Ryman, the sci-fi author, like I was a big fan of his work. Saw he was doing this workshop with Simon Ings. I was like, right, I need to do that. So I spent a week with those two learning how to write science fiction and fantasy. And they tore apart my work. They told me how terrible my writing was. And it was the most heartbreaking thing ever. But I think I learned more from that experience than anything else really that I've done. So yeah, I think it was from that where I thought, well, okay, I can tell a story. I can write, I could string a sentence together, and I've got a lot to say, so I'm just going to try it. So that's when I started writing my Wasteland series. So I wrote 4 books in that, and then they did pretty well. So I was able to just go, right, well, I don't need to do freelance journalism now. I can just focus on this, and that's what I've done since. So yeah, it's been good. And the lockdowns and things didn't really affect me in the way it has for some other people, because I've just been working from home anyway since 2017, really, just working on this.
Sure, and then obviously, I mean, you're hugely prolific. I mean, you've got the Ravenglass Chronicles, which is 23 books in that series.
Yeah, 22. Yeah. I mean, they're all novellas, and one of them is only available to my newsletter. But yeah, it's that series was. I don't know if you're familiar with prog rock.
Yes, well, I don't know if you can see this, but Let's see, my Led Zeppelin tattoo on my
Oh,
arm.
okay, right. Okay. So you'll know what I mean then by the concept album, yeah? Right.
Yes.
So this was my fantasy concept album. So what I wanted to do was to have a really big epic fantasy story that each episode was inspired by a card from the major arcana of the tarot.
Okay.
So each of the episodes is, there's a kind of a character with a core story that goes all the way through. It tells a story of basically a bratty princess who becomes, good enough to be an empress. And along the way, she has lots of ups and downs. But each of these episodes was inspired and brainstormed, and the imagery and the magic system and everything was drawn from the tarot. So I would, I'd sit there and go, okay, what's the magician about? And then that would be what that story is about. And then go into the next episode, and then it'd be the empress, the emperor, going through all the cards up until the world. So that was cool. That was really fun to do, really interesting, and kind of interesting how those cards would, like the hero's journey and things like that. It's almost like the mashed together with that. It felt like the progression of those cards was that heroic journey, that journey. So it worked really well as a structure, but also just allowed me to draw on lots of cool stuff that I might not necessarily have drawn on. And I don't know, like there's a thing I used to do, because I used to play in bands when I was younger, and we nicked an idea, I think it was off Brian Eno, where we'd draw these cards and it'd be like swap instruments or playing a different key. And it was just to throw a bit of randomness into the creation process. And when you do that, it almost forces you to think things differently. And when you're working on your own, it's actually really difficult to get randomness and that spontaneity in there. So the cards really help with that. And
and that's the kind of, did you play D&D or anything like that when you were younger, or was this video game?
Ish. So, my best friend is a avid D&D player. I don't play, but I help write his campaigns with him.
Right.
So we go to the pub and I'll help him plan his campaigns, and then a few months later he'll come back and tell me how they went. So we've done one recently, which is, it's set around a city where it's basically a city around the hand of a dead god, and the dead god will awaken, kind of thing, which is, that's, to me, that's like quite a cool concept for the start of just a fantasy series or whatever.
Yeah. I like that kind of thing too.
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of that stuff, but not really playing it, just because I've got other things to do. So I like the creation and world building side. And
sure. And how did you get into fantasy in general? Was it something that you were always interested in as a kid?
The books that I was brought up on, the books that I loved were things like, I've got vivid memories of my mum reading me The Witches by Roald Dahl, and Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe, and The Iron Man by Ted Hughes. And then when I was kind of growing up, I was always drawn to, I'd say it was more sci-fi, to be honest. I was really into like Asimov and things like that. And I think I went through a bit of a post-apocalyptic dystopian kind of phase as well, and zombie stories, and the Walking Dead comics when they were first around and things like that. So
and now we live in that society anyway.
And now we live in that society, and I just want to write fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. That brings us to your new series. So you mentioned before you're writing the second one. So this is the Assassin Fantasy series, Book 1, Dawn of Assassins. And before we go into it, I just have to say the cover is sensational. It is an amazing cover.
Yeah, I wish I could take credit for that. I didn't design it. Covers by Christian. He does amazing covers. And I think basically what happened is I kept having books that I'd see and I'd go, wow, that cover's awesome. Who did you cover? And the person would go, oh, covers by Christian. It's like, okay, I've heard that name several times. Right. Note of that. So yeah, that's how I ended up using him. And he's brilliant, really, really good to work with, and an amazing artist. So.
Yeah, it really stands out. It looks like, there's some really good book covers in fantasy, and there's some really not so good book covers, but this one really stands out as being like a cut above. I think from everything, it's really stands out. So tell us a little bit about this, because it's obviously the first book in the series. It came out middle of January, January 18th, I think it was, and it's been doing really well since it came out as well.
Yeah, no, it's done all right. It's I mean, it's the to be honest, I make most of my money when the series is complete. So at the minute, it's working at a loss for me. But that's fine because I make money on the box sets in the future. The story is, I mean, it's set in the same world as my Ravenglass Chronicles, so I've been building on this universe basically. It's set about 300 years after the Ravenglass Chronicles, so there's a bit more of a technological development. So where the Ravenglass Chronicles was definitely high fantasy, this one's got things like hot air balloons that are towed by wyverns, and yeah, just little cool. I'd say the borderline steampunk elements to it, and it's got a bit of a kind of Georgian Victorian kind of feel to the world, and it's building on a place which was in the Ravenglass Chronicles, but a whole town's kind of sprung around it, so it's kind of developing that. But yeah, it's about two friends who are best friends. I wanted to write something that's got lots of banter and just that interaction, male friendship. Like I really enjoy male friendship in fantasy books. Like I love the Greatcoat series and Michael J. Sullivan's Rhaenyra Chronicles and things like that. So I wanted to do something where you had two friends, always got the back for each other, and then they're put into a situation which is basically stuck between a rock and a hard place. They're recruited by a master assassin because he thinks that they've done something that they didn't, and then they're trying to escape basically, and they've also got to try and not get killed, and it's just adventure based on that, and it's about friendship, and it's about just how far would you go to kind of keep a friendship, and how far would you go to survive, and it's that kind of clash of those two desires, I suppose.
And that is something that is kind of unusual these days, where you do have just two friends who are friends and actually they're forced to spend time with each other in a story and actually like each other. Because nowadays we always get this ragtag group put together of people that generally hate each other, and sometimes,
Yeah, and
especially
that
these days,
sucks. It really sucks. I like friends. I like spending time with my friends and having fun, and taking the mick out of them and having banter and having drinks and all that good stuff. And I want to see it more in my stories. And yeah, I'll just do it myself if no one else is going to bother.
That's the way, isn't it? That's the way of writing it. I'd really like to see this in the book. Why is no one else doing it? So where is this series going to go? Like, obviously without any kind of spoilers, but obviously Ravenglass was 22 books, and this one is substantially quite a bit
This
bigger.
is not going to be. Yeah. This is not going to be 22. This is going to be 3 at 3 to start with, and it's the trouble is I'm building up what I'm calling the Ravenglass Universe. So I'm going to be writing lots of different books and series in this same universe. And I've started, I've written it now. I've written the first novella in the next series. And then I've got the outline for the first book in the next series. So I'm wanting to do lots of probably trilogies that are all set around, different points on the timeline in this world. So next one is more of an Anglo-Saxon kind of era feel. So, 800 years before the Ravenglass Chronicles. So, so at least 3 books, and it's going to be one of those things where if I get cool ideas for it, and they've got to be cool ideas, I don't just want to write it for the sake of writing it. If it excites me, then I'll write more. But there's definitely a 3-arc thing going on with this, and then I don't know. I might end up killing everyone off, so I might not be able to. I don't know what the 3rd book's going to hold at the end yet, but yeah.
Be like Planet of the Apes 2, a nuclear bomb just explodes in the world. And you're like, they still made 5 sequels, so it's okay.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, this is the thing. It's in a way kind of a sequel to the Ravenglass Chronicles because it's set in the same world. There is recurring themes and places and characters and things like that. So, yeah.
Excellent. So one final question before you can tell us where we can find you on the internet and everything. You mentioned before about how at the start of your like writing career you went onto a retreat and you were taught to some more people. Say you were hosting a retreat now and you had people coming to you. What would be the kind of main advice that you would give them from what you've experienced?
Wow. Well, that is that's a good one actually. I think my main advice, first of all, is there's no writing police. There's advice, there's guidelines, right? So don't use adverbs, okay, except when you need to. Don't do this except when you need to. You know, listen to your story, follow the story, and I think story's king. I think that's one thing that it gets lost, especially if you're doing it in an academic setting. So a lot of focus on the sentences and things like that, and it's like, no, what resonates is character, what resonates is story. The writing, as we've seen with certain authors who are very prolific, who are very successful, it's not about the quality of the writing. And as much as you'd like it to be, it's not. It's about the story, and the story grabs you. And if you can get that, focus on the story, then everything else will fall into place. I think, yeah, that is it really. That's the main thing. And just I suppose the gatekeepers as well. We're in a time now where you've got a lot of people who are told this is how you do publishing, this is how you do this, and it's like, no, the gatekeepers are still there, but what most people haven't noticed is the wall no longer exists. So you can just go in, you can go in yourself, and you don't have to get an agent, you don't have to get a publisher, you don't even have to use Kindle, Amazon. You know, you can create your own way. You can use, there's new technologies coming through. You can do subscription models, Patreon, NFTs, crypto stuff. There's loads of different innovative ways of getting your story out there and making a living from it. And you don't need anyone else. And you don't even, it's great because I suppose the structures that used to keep people down who were, you know, maybe of races, different disabilities, things like that, who were being kept down by the gatekeepers, doesn't matter anymore. You can get by them. The walls no longer exist, and I think that's really liberating. And I think that the best stories, the stories that you wished you'd told or were told as a child, they're going to be out there now, and you can do them. So that's it. Yeah, just don't listen to the people telling you what you can't do. Just remember that you can control this, and it's a really exciting time for that. Really exciting time in publishing. So do it. Don't let anyone tell you can't.
Yeah, excellent answer. Yeah. Where can people find you? So I know you have a very active newsletter.
Yeah, to be honest, that is the best place. I do a podcast every week, which is Jon Cronshaw's Author Diary, imaginatively titled. And that's JONCRONSHAW. You can find that wherever you find podcasts, really. I also record those onto my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/c/Jon Cronshaw author. And then it's joncronshaw.com. I'm not really one for social media, so I'm not on Twitter or anything like that. And that's probably how I get so many books written, is not being always on social media. So yeah, newsletter. The prequel to Dawn of Assassins is called Birth of Assassins. Start there and you can get it for free. Just go to my website and it's joncronshaw.com, and then you can just drop your email there. I will send you the free, and it's novel length, so free book. And there's also some other stories and goodies as well for people who sign up to that. So yeah, do that. That's the best place to do it.
Excellent. And for everyone who's watching on YouTube or listening to us on Spotify or Apple Music, all the links to Jon's books and his website and his YouTube channel and podcast will be in the show notes below. So please do check those out. There's a huge breadth of work that you can check out from Jon, and be sure to check him online and join his newsletter as well. Jon, thank you so much for coming on and spending some time with me. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, it's been good. Yeah.
Excellent. And everyone who's watching, until next time, thanks very much.
Take care, everyone.